Well, it's pretty early in the morning. It's like 5:30 a.m. right now. I just woke up about an hour ago and I couldn't sleep, so I thought I'd get some work done. So let's go on a walk and a talk, and we're going to talk about a fairly serious topic today while the city wakes up. Oh, and I should say that this video is sponsored. It's a sponsored video. I'll be talking about Surfshark VPN later in the video. So a few days ago, I was in Taiwan and I was visiting a few friends and we were talking about geopolitics. But everybody wants to talk about the threat of China's military. And yeah, I think that the military is a significant threat, but I don't think it's the biggest threat that Taiwan is facing right now. So I want to talk about the 5 biggest threats that Taiwan is facing right now, today, every day. And we'll start at the bottom, and the bottom is, number 5, the military, China's military. China's military is very interesting because it's both impressive and unimpressive at the same time. It's very impressive at how quickly they were able to build up. It's truly unprecedented. But it's also unimpressive in a few regards. It's very corrupt. It's completely untested. At least the modern military is completely untested. The few examples that we do have, usually involving like peacekeeping missions in Africa and other militaries using Chinese equipment, not exactly impressive. And when they do show of force, when they have these unannounced military exercises that seem like they were quickly planned, what they call Operation Joint Sword, these exercises, they don't last very long, usually less than a day. The videos of military exercises that I've watched, I mean, they're complete propaganda pieces. And some of them are just straight up a joke. So it's not the most impressive thing. But the big reason they're ranked at number 5 is because they're not actively engaging Taiwan. It's very passive shows of force. Now, of course, in the worst case scenario, China's military could quickly become the number 1 threat. But for right now, I'm going to put number 5. Number 4, I think that the 4th biggest threat is economic warfare. This is happening right now. It's been happening. And I include gray zone tactics like severing internet cables in this. But that also includes trade sanctions, overfishing in Taiwan's waters and other countries' waters, market manipulation, dishonest practices like product design theft, low-cost material dumping, goods dumping. This is when China will just flood another country's market with a low-cost equivalent. Like electric vehicles are a great example of this. And also just like simple trade sanctions, refusing to buy a country's product, refusing to export their own stuff out to other countries, especially with rare earth minerals. Now, these types of practices don't just affect Taiwan, they affect the rest of the world. It's a big reason why most of the developed world is not happy with China. Actually, most of the world is not happy with China. Don't have a lot of allies. Even countries that fell for the golden promises of the Belt and Road Initiative have quickly found that their deals have turned sour. That was just an economic trap. But the world is learning and rapidly, quickly decoupling from China's economy. Okay, now we're starting to get to more serious stuff. Number 3. This to me is actually honestly very scary, and that is cyber attacks, cyber warfare. This is another one that is happening every day and could escalate to being number 1, the number 1 threat. So it's early morning. I don't have the sources off the top of my head. I didn't bring any notes with me. But depending on the source, Taiwan is either the most or the second most. It's definitely top 3 countries that is under the most amount of cyber attacks every day. I remember reading how Taiwan is over, I think it's like over 2 million cyber attacks daily. And I don't think that number even includes things like scams. I think that's mostly DDoS attacks and phishing attacks. And I think that's primarily targeting like government websites and institutional websites. If we include just scammer attacks against the Taiwan people, it's probably more like 4 million a day, maybe more. But the consequences of these attacks can include stolen data, ransomed data. Hackers will take over a network and hold it for ransom. Attacks on government websites and government networks, military networks. It could be very serious, could disrupt communications, financial institutions, banking. Like, imagine how crazy it would be if you can't draw out cash anymore, if you can't move money anymore because of a hacker. Or what if infrastructure gets attacked? What if hackers get access to the electricity grid? So for me, cyber attacks are really scary, especially as AI develops. The only defense is to make better AI than whatever your enemy is making. Like, the cyber warfare scenario is so serious, it's happening daily. It reminds me of science fiction that I read when I was younger. You know, the risk of cyber attacks is one of the big reasons why I'm very happy to have Surfshark VPN as a sponsor. If you watch a lot of YouTube, I'm sure you've seen lots of VPNs being advertised. I use Surfshark VPN because they're extremely reliable and they're extremely affordable. And VPNs are very useful for avoiding things like price discrimination or for getting access to streaming content that you just wouldn't have access in your home country. However, the biggest reason that I use Surfshark is for internet security. You see, Surfshark's encryption means that I can browse the internet privately without risk of my data being stolen. Hackers, scammers, governments, even the internet service provider, they can't see what I'm doing online. If that sounds interesting to you, then please scan this QR code or click the link in the comments below, surfshark.com/uncletopher. You can get 4 extra months of service. I personally recommend getting Surfshark 1. With Surfshark 1, you'll get the VPN, but you'll also get a bunch of other great internet security tools, like virus scanners, ad blockers, and Clean Web. Surfshark's Clean Web, it's a great tool. It can help you avoid scam websites. I use Surfshark every day. Their internet speeds are extremely fast. Unlimited devices can be protected with just one account, so you can actually share Surfshark with your friends and your family. And I think that ensuring that your family is protected against hackers and scammers is a really good idea. It's a good gift to give. So if you're interested in great internet security, please scan this QR code or click the link in the description, surfshark.com/uncletopher. You can get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. And for me personally, the low cost is well worth the peace of mind I get knowing that my information is safe and that my internet is secure. Well, if cyber attacks are so scary, then what's number 2 on our list? In my opinion, I think it's what's called the 5th column. This is just a term meaning to describe spies. Spies, corruption, traitors, double agents. This is another massive threat that Taiwan is under every day. Not just Taiwan, also the US and other countries. And honestly, I guess it's also fair to put just what we call in English useful idiots in this category as well. So in counterintelligence, they use a term called MICE. And this is an acronym used to describe how to convince someone to be a spy. Money, ideology, coercion or compromise, and ego. And these are basically the things that will convince somebody to betray their own nation. Consequences of double agents and spies, very wide-ranging. Stealing sensitive information. For example, that's how China developed its stealth program. That's why they have stealth fighters like the J-20. They used corporate spies to steal that information from the US. But it can be used in many other ways, like awarding contracts to specific CCP-friendly companies. If a politician is coerced, is corrupted, then writing policy, introducing policy that is against the nation's best interest. And as we've recently seen with Ukraine and Israel, spies within a country can attack very sensitive, very strategic locations using low-cost drones. And this isn't actually new, it's just like an evolution of bombing in general. Before drones, they would use methods like car bombs. So the risk here is really high. And it's a guarantee that there are spies within Taiwan and within the US and other nations. And China's pretty good at it. They not only use like professional spies, but they're also able to recruit just basically normal everyday people to do spying. There's all sorts of examples of people using drones to try and film information on US bases. And these are like college kids. I think they were genuinely just trying to get in the CCP's good graces. Like, I don't think they were recruited spies. I think that they're just trying to make a good impression. Maybe they want to earn a government job. And of course, there's also plenty of examples of people in the military of all sorts of ranks, both the US and Taiwan, being compromised by the CCP. And you know, whenever I read these stories, the amount of money that they got paid out is just, to me, it's so shockingly small. I can't believe that these people who swore an oath, swore allegiance to their own nation, would betray that oath, betray themselves, betray their own nation, betray their own people, and the future generations of their people, endangering the lives of civilians, children, all for just like a little bit of money. I haven't read a story yet about how one of these spies that have been caught were paid tens of millions of dollars. No, it's usually like $10,000. It's so stupid. Now, I personally believe that the US and Taiwan should have much harsher punishments for spies and for traitors. Yeah, I personally think that 20 years in prison should be the minimum sentence. No chance of parole, no chance of reduced prison time. I think it should be extremely harsh. There's probably a lot of legal arguments as to why it's not like that, though. You know, I mean, I'm a layman. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. It's just my opinion. Okay, well, I've talked about some scary stuff here. So what's number one on my list? Well, I think that the number one threat that the CCP brings to Taiwan and to the USA is propaganda. Propaganda can be extraordinarily effective. It's also very cost effective. And the target of propaganda is you and everybody you know. And with modern technology, with social media, it's just gotten so much more prevalent. Obviously, TikTok is a threat, but so is Facebook, so is YouTube, and every other social media platform. There are people who just get caught in an algorithm and they are bombarded daily by hundreds of messages that have a very specific ideology completely designed to radicalize them. That's how dangerous propaganda is. It's especially dangerous in a democracy. You see, the CCP is excellent at using democracy against itself. And honestly, that's a really smart thing to do, is to use one of your enemy's strengths, turn it into a weakness. Propaganda is how you do that with the freedom to vote. To try to convince people to vote against their own interests. Now, again, this is just an early morning talk and walk, basically a rant. I don't have the data, the statistics in front of me. I don't have the sources in front of me. But from what I can recall off the top of my head, the CCP spends somewhere around like $12 to $15 billion a year on propaganda. And feel free to fact check that number. You know, use Google Gemini or ChatGPT or Grok or whatever AI, maybe not DeepSeek, but you know, feel free to fact check me here. But we'll say the CCP spends about $15 billion every year on propaganda. Now, let's compare that number with the cost of invading Taiwan. Even the low-end estimates, the best case scenario for an invasion of Taiwan for the CCP, the cheapest it would be for the CCP to invade Taiwan would be around $1 trillion. But again, that's the low-end number. It's much more likely that it would exceed $5 trillion because it's probably not going to be successful, be very messy, be all sorts of sanctions, huge economic impacts and ripples throughout the world, and would achieve a worse result. So let's compare those two numbers. 15 billion to 5 trillion. It's way more effective, way cheaper, and achieves a much cleaner result if the CCP can use propaganda to convince Taiwan to vote against its own interests. It's even cheaper to build up a military and fly all these jets and try and intimidate people, try to scare them into voting against their own interests. So it's much, much cheaper to use bullying and propaganda than it is to actually invade. It's like you have 2 choices to buy a pineapple. And the first choice is you spend 150 NT and you get a perfectly great pineapple. It's wonderful. And the second choice is you spend over 50,000 NT and you're going to lose at least a finger, maybe even an entire hand. And when you get the pineapple, it's all damaged. It's not as good. So you see why I put propaganda as the #1 threat? It is much cheaper, much more cost effective, much safer for the CCP to use propaganda to convince the Taiwanese people to vote against their own interests than it is to actually stage an invasion. But that does, of course, mean that Taiwan needs to remain vigilant, needs to have a very well-funded military, a very well-funded defense, needs to be on guard against corruption and spies and coercion, needs to maintain top technology and have a very well-funded defense against cyber attacks. And this is why I agree with the concept of peace through strength. To me, it's obvious. It's painfully obvious. And there are so many historical examples. There's even just examples in nature that peace through strength works. And I know that Trump says that a lot, but he didn't come up with that slogan. It's a very old slogan. It's ancient. All right, well, I didn't really intend for this to turn into a rant, but I guess that's what happened. Sorry about that. But hey, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, please leave a thumbs up. Again, thanks to Surfshark for the sponsorship. They've been a big help to the channel. And a giant thank you to all my channel members. You guys are the best. Your support really means a lot to me. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope I didn't scare you too much. The threats in this world are real, but as long as we're aware of them, we can prepare against them, right? Okay? So I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you.